Right. We are live.
All right, attendees coming in.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Michael here. I'm here with Jane. We are just letting everybody get into the room, and then we will be starting very, very shortly. Thanks.
Good morning. We are delighted to welcome our Michael Anderson to our latest webinar. This is a particularly pertinent and relevant one, we think, how to survive and lead during a situation like this, during a crisis. Our Michael Anderson was our keynote speaker at Scottsoft last year, and we had fantastic feedback on the session he delivered for us then. He is an internationally renowned author, speaker, and technology entrepreneur, and I can't think of anybody better to guide us through this unusual and unprecedented time. Our Michael, if I could hand over to you.
Well, thank you, Jane, and hello, everybody. And what else can I say? But I wish we were meeting and doing this under better circumstances. It is a tough time out there right now. And there is some, well, let me share my screen. And all right. And Jane or Karen, can you just give me the okay that everything looks good on that end? All right, good. Thumbs up. That's always good. Anyway, like Jane mentioned, my name is R. Michael Anderson. You might have seen me at the last Scottsoft Scotland IS conference, and there's a lot going on. As a business leader, this is maybe the most difficult time you are ever going to go through. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you everything that I could to help make this a better time, an easier time for you. And just one or two things, but Karen, I believe we have a poll. So could you put the poll up there just as everybody, so everybody can see? So there should be a poll that pops up on your screen. And I just want to get a sense of what people are going through. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to get a sense of, for the people that are on the call, what's going through their mind and what do they think the future of their holds for their organization. So just take a second to vote. We are recording this, so normally when I started doing these, I've done these a couple times for a couple different business groups, because obviously what you're going through is happening worldwide. It was about 35 minutes, but because I've been talking to so many business owners and business leaders, it's going to probably take about 40 to 45 minutes. There are some downloads, and so if you can't make it to the end, I just wanted to give you the download link now. You'll be getting it from Jane and Karen and Heather are going to send it out, but it's tiny.cc/crisis pack. So if you're not sure you can make it to the end, you might want to just jot that down now so that you'll have the resources. So, all right, all right, Karen, can we see the results of the poll? Hopefully.
Yep, so hold on, I will just end the poll now. That's so 14 of the 27 delegates. Right, I'm not sure. Right, hold on, I'll share the results. Does everyone have the results now?
Mine did not pop up.
So I've stopped sharing. So it's saying it's sharing on my end. Do you want me just to give you a heads up of what's come back? So
yeah.
It's bad. I don't think we will survive. Thankfully, no one on the call is in that position. We'll have to make major changes, but we will make it through. 33%. It's tough, though we're in a decent shape. We'll make it through. It's 33%. It's not affecting us too much, 7%. And it's we're in a fortunate position of growing and taking advantage of opportunities, 27%, which is, I think, quite pleasing, to be fair, at this moment. That's optimistic.
That is good, and that's better than some of the other organizations out there. Because the last one I was on, the worst one, bad, going out of a business, was 20 to 25% of everybody, and it's tough out there, and we're going through unprecedented times. And that's what, so thank you for that, Karen. And it's important to know that people are in all different places of their journey. And that's why on this agenda, what I'm going to share today is we're going to talk about where people are at now and where you want to go as a leader for your organization, for your team. So I'm going to start out by giving, and again, you don't have to take notes. That's what the downloads are for, so you can be fully present here. You don't have to copy slides or anything else. You get all this information. We're going to give a strategic overview and some context of what you're going through. And then I'm going to give you some tools and guidance to what you should be doing now. So I have a downloadable that's called a crisis audit for leaders. So we're going through a crisis. There's some things you need to be doing now. You're probably doing some of them now, and there's probably some you aren't doing. So this is going to give you a nice flat out checklist of where you want to be on everything. It's going to identify and mitigate risks, because this is what this is all, a lot of this is about, is where are your risks at? What are you doing to mitigate them? And it's going to give you a crisis action plan. And so, and what it is, the downloads that I have for you are going to match the content that I'm going to give you too, because I'm going to give you some stories. I'm going to talk about what's happening. There's been a recent study that's been done, et cetera. And then the downloads are for your action. Because then we're also going to talk about the future. So right now it's massively important. And then also, where are you going? And then I have a strategic opportunity playbook, because at the end of the day, you also have to be looking at the longer term solutions. If you're only focused on right now, there's going to be opportunities that are going to pass you by. And I'm not going to go into a lot of my background. There's only a couple really important things. I founded, scaled, and sold a couple of software companies when I lived in California. One of them did really well. We got on the Inc. 5000 list, was voted #1 best place to work. I went on, I have a master's in psychology. Now what I do is I teach leaders at companies, big companies like SAP and Microsoft and Salesforce. Stanford has brought me in to work with their startup ecosystem. And as a leader, I've been through, for example, a lot of crises. I've been through 9/11. When everybody, and I worked for a North American branch of an organization, when everything just stopped right then. And that was even more out of the blue. Nobody had any idea that was coming, if you remember that on the call. And then a couple of years later, I went through a lawsuit where I almost lost everything. And that was the toughest time in my life. And I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about what to do as a leader. Then in 2008, the Great Recession came. And I was, from a mindset and business standpoint, I was much more ready for that. And we actually doubled in revenue and doubled in profit over the Great Recession. And a lot of people in our industry, as we sold enterprise software, went out of business. And so that's what I'm talking about, not just surviving, but thriving, because this is the time that opportunities are abound. And it takes some flexible and creative thinking. And that doesn't mean things aren't going to be tough, but you're going to have, and we'll talk about strategy of this, you got to make the difficult decisions and then be ready for the opportunities. because what's at stake here on the business end, and again, this is adapt or die. This is natural selection, because here's a graph, and I know this is U.S. economic growth, and this is very similar to the world economic growth. This is more to prove the point. But when we go to when you look at above this red line, anytime you're above this red line, to be honest, business is somewhat easy because there's large economic growths. But every time things take a dip, this is what we call natural selection. It's going to weed out the companies that aren't strong. And so it's important for you, because when you can make it through these dips and you can be ready for the downturns, when the economy grows again, you are going to be the one that really scales your business. It's sort of like being in a housing market and holding on to your cash. So when things take a dive, you can pick things up very cheaply. It's exactly the same thing. So when you can make it through times like this and hold on to some resources and have some resources available, there's going to be great rewards for you. Now, on the personal level, you are a role model. And what I mean by that is I'm really tall. If you don't know, I'm 6'8" or 2.03 meters. And in the USA, there's a famous basketball player named Charles Barkley, and he was a Hall of Famer. And there was a really famous advertisement where he says, "I am not a role model," but it was tongue in cheek, because he's absolutely a role model, being that good at basketball for that long. Just the same, you as a business leader, you are a role model. And whether you like it or not, and whether you know it or not, people look up to you. And I'm not just talking about people in your organization, but your family and friends do, because you have this position as a leader. And so it's important for you to realize that, and everybody is looking to see how you handle these crises. Because I'll tell you what, your reputation and your character is going to be tested, and and it very well could be how you get through these next couple months is going to define you. And so it's very, very important for you to do everything you can to really show up to be the strongest leader you can. Because how in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, how are you going to look back on this? How are you going to look back on your performance of this? And how are other people going to remember you during this time? Those are important questions for you to keep in your mind, because that's going to let you look at it from the holistic view and the strategic view. So let's move on. What's the crisis audit for leaders? So when you're going through this, and this is what I call the art of leadership, because there's no flow chart I can give you. There's no specific system that I can give you for right now, because you really want to do is balance and maximize empathy with business results. And I want to dig into this a little, because this is a bit of a high level concept and an ambiguous concept, but it's important to define. Because what do I mean by empathy? So what you want to do is you want to reach out to, for example, your employees and your stakeholders. How can you work with them? How can you work with them? For example, you might have employees out there that they're better, everybody's like, I want to keep my employees, but there's also the option to cut salaries. There's also the option to furlough them, especially here in the UK. And then there's the option to fire them and let them go. Now, there's different, some people might want to be let go because maybe they get some sort of unemployment from the government. Others might want to be on furlough. Others may want to stay. And so it's really about a conversation with them, and not just them, but all your stakeholders. A lot of people are very important. For example, vendors are very important customers. Well, when it comes to people like them, this is not the time to basically be a hard ass. Sorry, I don't know any other way to say it. But for example, if you have a lot of clauses in your contracts about a minimum order quantity, payment terms, you don't want to be, in a lot of cases, you don't really want to come down hard on that stakeholder that you have these clauses with. Because if you do that, that's going to ruin the relationship. I do a lot of keynote speaking. It's very common for people like me to get deposits in for a conference. In my industry, what almost all the speakers are doing, if there's a conference and they have to cancel or postpone the conference, we're giving back the deposits. Because if you're like, oh my gosh, I know you're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions on this conference and you're canceling it, this is not the time for me to say, you know what, I'm going to keep your couple £1,000 deposit. That really ruins a relationship. So this is really the time to create relationships. when I went through 9/11, I was working for the North American branch of a large software company, and the they were doing a management meeting in Vancouver. I was over in Europe, and it was in Vancouver, and our top salesperson was stuck in Vancouver after 9/11. And when the terrorist attacks happened, all travel was shut for a week plus. And I was talking to one of my buddies over there, and there was this guy. He was our top salesperson. He was a great guy, very relationship oriented. His name was Ken. We're chatting. He's like, "Man, what Ken's doing is amazing." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean it's amazing?" And because we sold big, large software systems, nobody was going to buy after that happened. He goes, "Ken is reaching out to each and every one of his customers and just checking in. He's not selling them anything. He's not trying to ask about their project. He's just seeing how they're doing as human beings." And that gained him so much goodwill. And that taught me a lot about what to do in situations like this. Because this is really the time to have that empathy. And this is a time to help the community and the society with critical goods and services. I talked to one guy, he's pretty much going out of business. He's laying off 75% of his staff, but he was really excited because him and his team worked over the weekend to provide a collaboration tool for the NHS in this time. And that is the time to give back to our healthcare workers, all the people that are on the front line. So you have the empathy part, and the empathy part is great. And it's not and you have to get business results, because your number one goal as a business leader, if you own the company or you run the team, is to make sure that team and that company survives. Because if your company does not survive at the end of this, nobody wins. It's a loss for everybody. Now, they surveyed CEOs that have retired, and they asked these CEOs, if you could have went back and led in a different manner, made different decisions, what would you do differently? Great question, right? And almost everybody, two answers came up higher than all the other answers. And the one was they would let go of mediocre employees faster. And the second was, during a downturn, they would make layoffs quicker, because there's no better way to flush cash down the toilet than by keeping people on, especially ones that you're going to have to let go of later. So this is the time where you need to make really difficult decisions very quickly, because if there's people, this thing lasts 3 or 6 months. And to be honest, I'm looking at this, we're going to be in quarantine at least 3 months. And that's going to bring us to July, right? So April, May, June, then we're at July, and then it's holidays, and then it's September, people are going to get back to it. I would say this is going to go on for 6 months. That's my realistic view. So if you're going to look at we're going to talk about cash flow in a second, you're going to look at your horizon. And if you're going to say, well, I can only keep people on for 4 months, you might as well let go of them now, because then you're going to save that cash, and then you're going to be able to have that for opportunities. And firing people sucks. I'm not going to lie. Firing people sucks, but you have to do it. I talked to a younger CEO. He had to let go of some people. He had to cut salaries by 30%. He's like, man, yesterday was the worst day of my life. I'm like, you're right, it was. But you know what? You got to make these hard decisions, and you have to make them decisively. You have to make them with a rational mind, but you have to make them and then move on. We're going to talk a little bit more about decision making, but you're right. This does suck. I'm not going to lie to you. You can't make good decisions from a place of fear. If you are in a place of fear, if you're in a place of massive stress, that's going to affect your decision making. We'll talk about a little bit more about that. They have to be well thought out and decisive. And your risk around this is flushing cash flow, going out of business, destroying the morale of employees and consultants. If you do this half-assed, if you let go of some people today and another in a couple of weeks, another in a couple of weeks, that's really going to destroy the morale of employees. If you're going to do cuts, do them once, do them strong, do the communication plan around that, and then move on. That's going to earn you respect and trust of your people. And it's going to you can destroy your relationships. What's also happened is you'll second guess and then you get down on yourself, and then you put yourself in a difficult position. So, and this balancing empathy and business results is done through communication. Reach out to your stakeholders, have a conversation. Don't make these in your own box. Thoughtfulness, take some time to reflect on these, take a walk outside, etc., to really do this. You get assistance, talk to somebody like me. I'm going to give you a heads up. If you are a business leader, I'm going to offer a free mentoring call at the end of this. So if you are struggling with these big decisions, I want to be of service to you. I know how difficult this is. So I'm going to offer a free mentoring call with me, one-on-one, so you can get that assistance. And creativity, you know, a lot of the people that thrive through times like this, it's done through creativity. So it's going to be done, again, empathy with business results, and it's balancing and maximize. So it's not like I have empathy to take away from my business results or business results take away from empathy. You want to have them both present. Don't think you have to do one or the other. They can both show up. And again, if you have questions on this, save them till the end, pop them in the Q&A. We'll save some time for questions at the end. Second thing, we're going to talk about cash flow, and you probably already know this, but you know, I can't mention it enough. It's the number one thing to be focused on. You got to have such a hole in your cash flow. I talked about the time horizon, 6 months to and even a year out. And you also you want to have projections and contingency plans. So you want to have your 1 month, like what's going to happen in the next month here, 6 months and 1 year. And again, I don't think it's necessarily going to last. Maybe it doesn't last past 6 months, but what's going to be your ramp up plan? You want to just start thinking about that. And then you want to have multiple scenarios. You know, I talked to a guy on Friday, last Friday, poor guy, to prep him for a board meeting on Friday. And so I talked to him early in the morning. He had the board meeting early Friday. We had a call scheduled Monday. He didn't make the call, and he sent me this email. Mike, I'm sorry I missed the call. It's just been crazy. It's like he had $2.5 million of canceled, it's a small business. He had $2.5 million of canceled contracts between the time we talked on Friday and the time we're supposed to talk on Monday. Boom. And so you have to have these multiple scenarios. What if we keep this with this company, with this customer? What if we let go of these people? How do those play out? And you really have to be on top of it with these. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. Your risk of this is getting caught with no money, going out of business, and then losing out on opportunities, because a little bit of cash goes a long way in a downturn. All right, so that was the crises audit, and you can download that with the link I gave you. Now we're going to go on to talk about strategic opportunity playbook. So this is about setting yourself up for getting through this. And I'm going to talk this starting with a clear intention. So there's a guy named Todd Herman, who's an author and award-winning peak performance expert, did a study recently over the last 2 weeks where he had a bunch of conversations with CEOs. And the CEOs ran companies anywhere, I think, from $8 million to $500 million. And he took the conversation and then he transcribed it, obviously recorded it with their permission, transcribed it, and then looked at the results, did word counts and things like that. And he said that he grouped the CEOs into 3 different buckets. One was fear-focused CEOs, and they were coming from a place of fear. 2 were unfocused CEOs who weren't necessarily in fear, but they weren't necessarily looking forward. They were putting their head in the sand. And then there were strategy-focused CEOs. Now, the fear-focused CEOs use specific words much more than the strategic-focused CEOs. They use words like government, Trump, coronavirus, COVID, and negative future-pacing words like struggle, fear, hard, or difficult, much, much, much more. So they were focused on this victimhood. What has happened? Whose fault it was? Now, if you shift that to the strategy-focused CEOs, they were, for example, 3 times more likely to know about Taiwan's response to the coronavirus. And if you don't know about Taiwan is having a very smart response to coronavirus, and the results are showing. They're 9 times more likely to have already shifted product or service offerings. They're 4 times more likely to have already made changes to their team. They use words like action or opportunity or buy, like buying. We'll talk about what you can do around that in a couple minutes, or positive future-facing words 13 times more than the other groups. And they were 4 times more likely to have already spoken to other CEOs around plans for growth, sustainability, or opportunities. So basically, what I'm talking about is an intention. I don't even take this the next level is you should have an intention for yourself. How are you going to get through this? Because how you show up is how your organization, it's going to bleed into the culture, and it's going to bleed into the mindset in each and every one of your people. So that's what I mean, start with an intention. Your intention, for example, should be to get through this as strong as you can and take advantage of every opportunity you can. And you really have to have that as your mindset and your intention, and bring that into the culture, and then bring that in so that everybody is aligned with that. Because it's really that energy that you bring. It's not what you say as much as the energy that you bring in your action, and your words matter too, that's really going to drive the next couple months. And so it's really having a clear intention for your whole organization. So it starts with that clear intention. And then and then your strategy should have to do with retrenching to conserve resources and position for maximize gains. And again, this is the next level of the cash flow, because we talked about what the audit is, what you want to look at now, but this is what you want to do now. And we talked about cutting people and salaries, including your own, and making the difficult decisions now. And you want to do this with empathy. You know, how you say this and how you communicate this really matter. There's a way to do this, and it's difficult with empathy. And how you communicate this to your whole organization. You want to be honest about it, but you want to be forward focused and strategic about it. And it's so important that you get that right. And and talk about corporate communication plans. The last time I was in Waitrose, everybody, I think you have them up in Scotland too. It's a big grocery store chain. I said to the cashier, I said, hey, what are you getting from corporate? Because I'm sure people are in here, they're buying all the toilet paper, they're stocking up on goods and services or goods. And he goes, you know, it's really, he got agitated. He's like, it's really frustrating. We're not getting anything from them. And that's the thing, your communication plan, even if you say nothing, even if you say, hey, we're working on stuff's happening so fast. I know you're out there on the front lines. We appreciate it that we're putting something together for you, is better than nothing. Really, nothing sucks, all right? I walked by the train station right by my house, and I was walking the dog, and I said, hey, how's the communication for Southwest SWR, Southwest Railways, who aren't known for their communication and things? I asked the people working at the train station, I said, how's your communication from corporate been? They said, actually really good. They've been really here. They've been giving us updates. It was amazing. So your communication plan matters. You want to protect and gather cash at all costs. Collect your AR, make negotiations, get that cash in the door. Take advantage of lines of credit, loans, government assistance, everything you can. Renegotiate everything. You know, when we were 2008 Great Recession hit, one of our biggest clients, they needed to go through a big. They were hit hard. They were retail, and they needed to really upgrade their computer systems. And so the CFO, who had a great relationship with, called me. He's like, Mike, can we get a 25% discount on your services? Because there was a whole lot of services in there. I'm like, yeah, I appreciate you, and you can, absolutely. So renegotiate everything. You know, if it comes to landlords, you're paying rent. I have rent abatement letters. I know how to ask landlords to let you slide on rent for a couple months. They don't want somebody new in there. They don't want you to leave. There's so many things you can do with vendors. If you have any questions about this, let me know, and really, really conserve your resources. And position to maximize gains. This is the time to do a company acquisition. You know, right around in the Great Recession, I acquired a company pretty much double the size of my company. I paid $10,000 in 3 years. A percentage of revenue was a game changer for me over the Great Recession. This is a time to upgrade your talent, to get good talent that's getting laid off out there. You know, as I talked about here, you want to take advantage of these times, be strong through these downtimes, because that's really when you can you can set yourself up for such an upward path going forward. New products and services. If you had things on the drawing board, you want to keep people busy with productive stuff, get them out there, give them away for free, so you get some case studies around it, and you can really set yourself up for when people start spending money, because at the end of the day, this is not going to last forever, and there's going to be cash to spend when this is over. So be the firm that's getting ready to take advantage of that cash. Now, I have a master's in psychology. I work with leaders a lot on their mindset. And this is a tweet that I love, where I'm sure everybody's going to this quarantine. Like, I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to do body weight training. I'm going to take advantage of this. Day 4, they're just pouring the ice cream into the pasta, right? So I don't know if this lands with you or not, but I thought it really cracks me up, because it's what a lot of people are going through. So I want you to just look at, how's your physical, mental, and emotional health right now? How's your stress level? Because when it comes to your stress level, you know you have problems when your mind is always racing. right? You can't get off all these problems you're trying to fix in your mind. You might feel a weight that's always on your chest. Some guy I talked to a couple of days ago, he's like, and here's the thing, I asked him, how you doing at the beginning of the call? He's like, yeah, things aren't that bad. We have this really in-depth, deep call. I was really feeling much more connected to him. Like, dude, how you doing really? And he's like, oh my God, he's like, there's a constant weight on my chest. For me, do you have stomach issues? Do you feel like your stomach just has this knot in it all the time? Are you not being able to sleep? Or do you feel like you're snapping with your partner? Or do you feel like you want to isolate yourself? You're hiding in your addictions. When I hate addictions, could be you're drinking more. You can't wait for that drink at the end of the day. Maybe you're day drinking. I don't know. Maybe you're smoking weed. Maybe you're taking drugs. Maybe you're on the prescriptions more and more. Maybe you're on the Netflix, the video games, the mobile games. You got to watch. All these things will creep up on you. Porn. This is the time where you got to be careful. Your addictions are going to creep up on you and start eating at that. And we need you at your best. We really need you at your best, because this is a time where you got to bring your A game. This is a time you're going to fizzle out, or are you going to be that kick butt leader we need? And what you do on your non-work time is almost as important as what you do at your work time. Let me check in with you. In the last 24 hours, have you showered today? What were your last 3 meals? How healthy are you eating? And when I say last 3 meals, what have you eaten in the last 24 hours? Because you might have been binging on your ice cream or binging on some of this other stuff. Have you drank more than usual? Using drugs? Are you hiding any other addictions? What are you wearing right now? You know what? Honestly, I put on a suit for you guys. I put on a suit for everybody. Makes me feel good, right? I just wanted to, so this is what I was wearing earlier today. This is just to make you laugh. My wife wanted to take a picture of it, but that's how I walk the dog. Hopefully nobody took a screen grab of that, but just playing around. But you know, what are you wearing right now? Because people are joking, I'm working in my PJs. Yeah, but you can't get that professional feeling in your PJs. I'm sorry. Have you exercised in the last 24 hours? Have you been outside for more than 5 minutes? How are your spouse, partner, kids getting along? And who and what is your accountability around this? Because I'll tell you what, we're at the beginning of this. Because take the last 24 hours, now extrapolate that for the last 3 months while still being quarantined. Right? How is your mental and emotional state going to be? Because let's talk about personal mindset. Here we have a graph. Here's time. Here's how stressed you are and how calm you are. And that relates to the mindset and decision making. Because you have 3 different layers. And what a lot of people do is they in a way lie to themselves or lie to me and say, hey, they're right here. It's okay. It's not that bad. Oh, I only control what I can control. I meditate. I'm Buddhist. Blah. I've heard it all in the last week or 2. And really they're here. And they're here. And what they think is, this is just going to last a couple of days. You know, I'm just going to make it through. And then I'm all of a sudden going to be, you know, around here. That's not what's going to happen. That's absolutely not what's going to happen here. Unless you do what you need to do, you're going to be like this for the next 3 months. It's going to get harder. It's going to get harder. And so you need to take action right now to get yourself up here, because we need you in this area. We absolutely need you in this area. And what you do, how you eat, how you exercise, everything is a lot of that. Because your risk, what's your risks around here? Lack of energy, feeling low, depression, taking it out on family and others, getting sick yourself. That's a big one, getting you sick yourself. Imagine what happens if you get sick with this COVID virus. You're out for a week or 2, and it takes a while to get back. You're missing opportunities. You're making poor decisions. You're dragging the team down. And you know what? At the end of the day, your marriage, your family, your business, and your team need you. So that's what's at risk right now. So when it comes to this strategic plan, just to review, it starts with a clear intention. You have 1 week goals. You have 1 month goals. You have 6 to 12 month initiatives. And don't make them goals, because my stuff is changing right now. So on the longer term, have these initiatives. And you know, I was coaching somebody on how to communicate this to their team. He's like, well, you know, I want to do this. And should I lay out the plan for the next 6 months? I'm like, don't lay out a plan, because stuff is so chaotic now. You want to be forward thinking. So you want to communicate in strategy and in positives, but don't tie yourself down, because what you don't want to do is communicate something to your team and then have to backtrack on it. So lay out these initiatives. This is what we're going to be working on in the next 6 to 12 months. Don't put time frames on. Don't put a lot of detail because you need that wiggle room. It's what we learn actually from politicians, but I'll tell you, you want to do that because you don't know all the details right now. So you want to be clear in your communication, and you don't want to start going back because that erodes trust. That's why I talked about communication plans, your own personal strategy for your personal mental and emotional health. So, well, you have this Survive and Thrive worksheet. So one of the downloads, and I always like to show the downloads so they're not blah, 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 PowerPoint. So here's the download. It's both in PDF and Word. It gives you some of the notes, so you don't have to take notes. Here's a Survive and Thrive worksheet. And what you can do is just fill it in. And then there's a risk analysis, and you can fill this in. So all this is downloadable from you. And then it's got a closing note from me. So all that's downloadable for you, no cost, just giving you as much value as I can. Now, you have a choice. Everything is all about choice. And let me tell you a little story about me. So I'm obviously American. I had some great success, both in America and Europe, doing enterprise sales. This is before I started my own company. And then I was hired to run sales and marketing for Southeast Asia for enterprise software company over in Asia. And I come in, I was young, I was this hot shot. I was so full of ego and confidence, and it was basically more ego than confidence. And I came in and I had my sales team and marketing team, and I'm like, we're going to do this the way Americans do it. I don't care how you've been doing it. I don't care about the local culture. I know best. Well, within 6 weeks, my whole team quit. They didn't want to deal with me. They're like, you're a jerk. They quit. And I remember back then I worked in a high rise in Singapore. That was where our headquarters. And I remember back then I smoked, and I remember going down, and I remember having that cigarette. When the last person quit, going down, having that cigarette, and I'm having this cigarette, and I'm like, I was really feeling sorry for myself. I'm like, I am such an idiot. I'm a loser. Everybody in the organization is going to know. I knew a lot of the people from before. I knew a lot of long time. They're going to see me as a failure and a loser. I came in here, we had a good team, and they're all gone within 6 weeks. Oh my God. When I was really like doubting myself and down on myself. And I remember I'm halfway through the cigarette. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to feel sorry for myself the rest of this cigarette. And once I'm done with that, I am going into a different mindset. And as I told myself, and I felt sorry for myself that next minute and a half to 2 minutes. And then after that, it's like I started to sit up. I envisioned myself putting on this superhero suit because I knew it was going to take a superhuman effort to get me through this next. And I'll tell you what, I went back to doing sales because nobody else was there to do sales. So I spent half my time doing sales and the other half interviewing and recruiting people. And we rebuilt the team. And I put my ego in my back pocket, and I learned humility. I adapted to the local cultures. And then we ended up selling, me and my team ended up selling the largest 2 Microsoft deals ever in that region over the next 12 months. And that's the choice you're at now. How are you going to show up as a leader? Are you going to survive, or are you going to thrive? Are you going to be that type of leader that's going to come out of this strong and be the type of leader that your team and your family need right now? That's the choice you're making. And so I have this offer for you. So if you are a director level or above, so if you're an owner, CXO, board member, VP, director, I am going to waive my normal fee for a mentoring session and open myself up. I've opened up a bunch of slots in my calendar. I've opened up some slots in my calendar. If you go to my calendar and they're not anymore, maybe send me an email. I'll try to get you on in the next batch. But over the next week or so, I've opened them up, and it's going to be a free one-to-one mentoring session. We're going to get down. Me and you are going to talk. And because at the end of the day, there's reflecting with a professional like me. I've been there. I've owned businesses. I have the master's in psychology. I've counseled for thousands of hours. I'm going to listen to you, and you're going to be vulnerable, and you're going to be open, and we're going to talk about the really stuff that you should be talking about. Because at the end of the day, you are here. You are here, and we need to get you here so that you can make these great decisions for everybody. When I just have one more quick talk, and again, here's the booking link. You can go to that link to book your call and download the resources. When I went through, I don't even know, when is this, 2007, I I had a key employee that had some equity. So he was technically a business partner, and him and me got into a fight, to an argument, and he ended up hitting me during the fight and assaulting me in our own office. April 1st. Wow, that's yesterday, 2007. Wow. And and so I had to file a it was crazy. My business partner assaulted me in my office, and you know, it was like a physical disagreement, and it blew my mind. And I we were arguing, and he came around and he hit me, and it didn't really hurt. I blocked it, but then he left, and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? I didn't even know. It was just like, what do I even do? And people ask me, what was I feeling? And it's like, I don't even know what I was feeling. I was in shock. I could never even imagine that would happen. And it's like my brain was trying to figure it out. I had a mentor, and I called that mentor, and I said, well, what do I do? I don't even, because I wasn't thinking straight. I was in that negative. I was in this area, and I wasn't thinking straight. And he's like, look, go to the police, register it, file a restraining order, file a lawsuit right now. Don't mess around. Do that now. And I did, and I thank God he got that, because I did all these things right away. And then I had somebody else that I had accountability with, because it sent me into a depression. And you know, it's like I'm going to lose everything. I had to tell all my employees, I had to tell my customers that this guy who worked here yesterday all of a sudden doesn't work here anymore. It was like, oh my gosh, so much stress. I can't even tell you. And I had somebody else that I did accountability with. He knew what I was going through. That next morning after it happened, he called me like 8 in the morning. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sitting in bed. He's like, well, what's your plan? I don't have any plan. I just want to stay in bed. I was just covers over my head. He's like, bullshit. Get up, get out of bed. This is the time. You need to be strong right now. What are you gonna do first thing? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, bullshit. You don't know. What are you gonna do first thing? Maybe call my lawyer. He's like, yeah, call your lawyer. Because look, when you're in a time of crises, part of you wants to pull back. Part of you wants to like not do anything, get caught and just do the very minimum. But you know, this is a time where you have to show up, because when it is in crises, you have to make big decisions quickly, and they have to be well thought out. They have to be from here. And unless you have the right backup doing it, you can't make those decisions. It's almost impossible. It's physically, mentally, emotionally impossible. That's why I'm giving this to you. And he did that for the next 2 weeks. I had that accountability. I had that motivation. And that is what you need. So reach out. The first step is reaching out to book this call. So here it is. I'm going to ask for, we're going to do the final poll and the Q&A in just a second, but go to this link, download the resources. Here's what the link looks like. I like to show everybody these links, so there's no thing. So you're going to go to this. It's going to say, put your name and email in. You're going to click get your resources. Then it's going to go to this screen. Here is the download. If you're on mobile, it looks basically the same. If you do qualify, hit continue and pick what it is. So here's your download link. Here's your call book link. You just click continue. You've probably seen these, and you just pick the next best time for you and I to have our mentorship call. All right, so you want to go do that. So download the stuff, book your call, join my group. I have one on LinkedIn or Slack. Nice and easy to find. There should be links on one of on that page, if not a follow-up email. All right, so everybody, that's all I have. I'm talking. All right, we are going to go to Q&A in a second, and also, all right. So, is there any Q&A? I know I do these. Sometimes I have Q&A, sometimes I don't. Karen, hopefully you're still on. Karen and Jane, hopefully you're still on there with me. Hopefully you stuck it out with me.
We are.
Is there any? Do you guys have any questions? Is there any Q&A from everybody out there?
There's no Q&A that's come in directly through this, but we have got a couple of questions that have come in through other channels, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
One of them that's come up in different forms a couple of times recently, but I think it's a very good one, is what do you think, to summarize, the 3 key attributes a leader needs to come out the other side of this are?
Well, number one is you have to have that clear intention of how you're going to, and again, it's not just to limp through this. You want to be strong. How are you going to show up, and how is your company going to show up? And you can do layoffs and still show up strong, for example, and have your company still be one of these thrivers. The 2 is to, again, balance the business results, the business goal with the empathy, is to have both at the same time. And the 3rd is, and I can't stress it enough because it gets lost in all these other things, is to really, really focus on your mental and emotional health. You know, are you exercising? Are you getting outside? Are you meditating? I've doubled my meditation. I'm doing it morning and night. You know, there's a joke about meditation. They say, I meditate half an hour unless I'm really, really, really busy. Then I meditate an hour a day. You know, this is a time to up your game. Don't tell me you don't have time for this. That's BS. This is a time you need to eat healthy. This is a time to quit drinking. This is a time to quit, you know, if you do other drugs, and I hate to mention that, but a lot of stress, sometimes people turn to these addictions. This is a time to go on that healthy thing, and you don't want to do it. You want to eat your comfort food, and you also want to take time out for yourself to have a walk with your spouse. And there's so many different things I want to teach people about just how to manage their day. I can't go into here, but there's so many things you need to do to show up to be your best, because if you want to be the best leader you can, it starts with there. You can't build a foundation on a broken platform.
Thank you. That's a very good answer. We have one that's just come in through Q&A. It says, you mentioned doing layoffs in one go. Do you think this is possible in the current crisis, as we might not know just now the full impact? I'm not sure I can achieve this for my business.
That's a great question. And again, it's where whatever's possible, because when you can do layoffs and you can tell your staff that your goal is, the remaining staff is, your goal is not to do any more layoffs, they can relax a bit. So many large companies do these staggered layoffs, and if they know staggered layoffs are coming, then people just lose all engagement with your company. And so if they think that they're at risk, and if you can be honest with them, and it's this balance of being like, look, things are hard. Look, I had to make layoffs. My goal and our goal is to get through this next period without any additional layoffs. And I can't even promise that. And people are like, look, they're telling the truth, because they're people are thriving on authenticity right now. And and that's such a hard message to stand up virtually in front of your company and deliver, but they will respect you for that. They will respect you for that. So that is massively important to do that. And if you and you may not be able to do that, but and it's this balancing act, and book a call if you need help with this, because you want to give them information, but also you don't want to, authenticity and vulnerability is also not throwing up all your problems all over them. And you know, what I also tell people is, you're going to go, as a leader, you're going to go through ups and downs. You're going to have your good days and your bad days. Last 24 hours, me and my wife, we had this thing with me and my wife and my stepson, my 9-year-old, we just all really had it at each other, and we just blew up, and it was crazy. And that's okay. You're going to have these, especially when you're all confined, this cabin fever. But when you're in a low mood, do not address your company. You have to put on this, and I know this is tough. You have to put on you have to be the beacon of positivity. When I say positivity and optimism, that's not lying. You don't want to say this isn't a tough time, right? You want to be, this is a tough time, and we're going to suck it up, right? And if you are going through a little bit of a down day, that's not the time to have a staff meeting. That's the time to have somebody like me, a peer or something, to have that conversation, for them to bring you up on that. Hopefully that's helpful. Yes.
That's very helpful, hugely. And I think your suggestion of people signing up, taking the advantage of the coaching sessions with you, is an extremely good one. We've heard fantastic feedback from people who have had that chance before. One more question, if you don't mind, which is, looking ahead, whether to 2021 or 2022, what do you think is maybe one positive thing that we can take forward from all of this?
There's a lot of potential positives, and there is, we're learning about the environment. There's so much less pollution around. We are learning how to embrace technology. A lot of companies and a lot of people are learning how to embrace technology. And it's funny, because before this, a lot of people would say, hey, let's have a coffee when you're in Edinburgh or you're in London. I'm like, I don't know if that takes third of a day to have coffee. So I have done virtual coffees, and I get almost as much out of them as I do an in-person coffee. In fact, we get to the heart of things a little more when you're virtual and you only have 20 minutes or half an hour. So it's opening up things like that. And also, I think it's also, we're also learning how important face-to-face conversation is. You know, I do speak at a lot of conferences, and there are a lot of things you can do virtually, and with Zoom, you have these cool breakout rooms, and there's all these different things, and people, and there's also no replacements for in-person conferences. I remember, Jane, you know, the conference I was with you at, everybody's so warm, and there's people you meet at lunch, and the breaks and things, you know, are phenomenal. And so I think that there's going to be people doing more things virtually, but I think it's also making us realize, you know, the power of networking and people getting together. So that's a great question. We've been talking about it. My wife and I have been talking about it. It will be interesting. Jane, what do you think is going to be a positive coming out of all this? You're on this pulse in a different way than a lot of us are.
I think pretty much what you've just said, what we're seeing here in Scotland particularly, and I think it was interesting from the beginning, Paul, we saw some of that, was that there are huge challenges for all of the companies, and I'm not making light of the fact that some of us are having to furlough or lay off staff or reassess business models, but there's also a really positive aspect to the way people are responding. The amount of collaboration that we are seeing is phenomenal, and the amount of companies offering support both to the Scottish government and UK government calls to action, but also a huge response from the technology industry, offering services and products and advice and consulting free to other businesses to see them through, you know, the 3 months or 6 months really massive transformation period. So we've collated a business hub that has all of those offers on it. I think when we come out the other side, we will have changed our culture to a certain extent. I think collaboration will be a way of life. I think we will reassess how we travel and how we treat our workplaces. I don't think any of us would want to work like this remotely all of the time, but I think working some of the time remotely will become more ingrained in even businesses that didn't think it was possible before. And that will help. That will help us reduce our carbon footprint. And it will also be good for our member companies because digital is critical through this period. So I think those are some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is great seeing people come together. And, you know, when I walk my dog, everybody like gives each other a bunch of people, but we all smile at each other. It's like you know, we can focus on some of the negatives, but also, you know, I've really seen almost to a person, really people really coming together and this sense of community. We saw that in 9/11 globally and in New York and in the US as well when things like this happen.
We've got a thank you as well from Dr. Poonam Malik, who is somebody that we've often shared a panel with and is a great speaker herself. She says, good to hear and see you again. The question is, some other suggestions for what could leaders working with and supporting multiple organizations do to help entrepreneurial community, ecosystem, and people to support them when looking externally and not just internally, for instance, vertically within one organization. So what could you do as a leader that's supporting multiple organizations across an ecosystem?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, if you're a startup and you've already been like, you've had some traction and looking for money right now, I mean, it's just, there's a guy in one of my masterminds, I'm like, put everything on hold. I mean, because he was even pre-revenue and they were at a burn rate. And so it's I think for especially senior leaders like the doctor there, you know, it's about making sure that the younger leaders or the entrepreneurs are making the right decisions. And so many, especially when you're earlier in your career, you want to try to keep everything going, hoping for a miracle. Miracle is not going to come. I hate to be, I want to be realistic. And you know, there's you want to retrench so that you don't personally declare bankruptcy, your company doesn't prepare bankruptcy, and that you get out of this at the other end with, you know, your couple key. For example, they were a startup. They were in the money raising. They had like one customer, and they were 3 founders and like 5 or 7 programmers. He's like, yeah, I think we're going to try to keep everybody. I'm like, what? They had 3 months of runway. I'm like, we talked through it, and I coached them. This wasn't advice, but basically we got to basically laying off everybody, keeping the 3 founders, doing a little bit of product research and keeping, you know, a little bit of traction, but nobody's going to buy their, you know, it was a law tech thing. Nobody's going to buy their product right now. They're not going to have any revenue. And so I think the senior leaders, when you talk to a lot of people, it's making sure that they're making well thought out decisions, not overly optimistic, wishful decisions. And often what happens psychologically, I think, is people don't want to, for example, do layoffs. So I remember I had this lady, she ran one of my software companies, and she was great, but she would always say, "Oh, I'm going to let go of this salesperson." Then we'd have our weekly call, our weekly management meeting. She's like, "Oh, I didn't let go." And she'd have a bunch of excuses because she didn't want to have the difficult conversations. And so I think with our experience, it's really leading them through these difficult conversations and making them do what they really don't want to do. But, having surgery now is better than getting more sick later. So, yes.
Thank you. I think that's, again, a really good practical answer. And I think even people with experience and time served in leadership roles find those difficult conversations still difficult. So that's really good advice. Karen, we still have you here. Would you like to run the next poll?
Absolutely.
Yes, everybody. Yeah, everybody. I'm here to be of service. I'm at the point in my career where I get more out of helping people. I still have a software company. I do some things here and there, but I really want to be of service to you. And this is an unprecedented time. So I just wanted to know, you can just pop something in here because I want to be of service to the business leaders. So just to give me an idea, and this is anonymous, you're not signing up for anything to do this, but just let me know, because I have the call that I'm offering. Would a daily message by email of just, different little hacks you could do be helpful? Would it be helpful to have a community where we keep you accountable? We do brainstorming, that you get some coaching from me. Would that be helpful? Personal coaching, if you're saying, hey, I could use some advisement right now, book a call and mention that. Or if there's something else, I'm here to be creative, and maybe you're thinking of something that I could offer to you and or the community, whether it's paid for, whether it's free. I'm open to different types of things, because this is, I told my wife, we're going to remember this the rest of our lives. I remember the same thing when I was actually in Denmark when 9/11 happened, and we're watching CNN, and I was dating a girl, and she was like, yeah, this is not a big deal. I'm like, you will remember, I will remember this day. You will remember this day. Most of us, if not the whole Western world, remembers when we heard about terrorists flying into the World Trade Centers. And this isn't as sudden, but all of us, the rest of our lives, will be telling our grandkids about the first quarantine. The first quarantine. Wow, that sounds weird, but and just like 9/11 changed travel, this is going to change a lot of things too. And it's going to change some things for the better. And we're going to, hopefully most of it's on the better side. So, but it's leaders that are on this call and that Scotland IS support. And it's organizations like Scotland IS that enable leaders to be in that position. So that's my soapbox, Jane. Thanks for letting me get my word out. I feel like a preacher sometimes.
No, you are very welcome. We're delighted that you're able to join us today. It's always, I for one, always find it incredibly positive and learn something new every time. It's really valuable, particularly now. Karen,
Yes.
Would you like to tell us what the poll's saying?
Yes, so I will share these with you, Mike, after the webinar, but we have, so 33% of people on the call would like a call with you and are on their way to book it. 30% of people would like a daily message by email, and 60% of people would like a group community coaching.
Wow.
Option, so that's good. Another 30% would like some personal coaching and are going to book a call. And one other person would like something else and would like that further chat. So we'll make sure that we share, if that person can just drop an email to us. I'm sure we can figure out who you are, but if you can just drop an email to even info@scotlandis.com with your contact details, and we can pass them on to Michael, and you can take that offline. But I will share this poll, those poll details with you, and anyone else on the call who would like us to share their details with Michael, if you can just drop us an email, as I said, on info@ scotlandis.com, and we can make sure that we do that and put you in touch.
Great. And there's my, yes, there's my email. Absolutely. Feel free to reach out. Yes, sorry, there's stuff beeping and flashed all over the screen. But thank you so much for having me. You know, this is a time for all of us to really rely on each other. Please reach out to me if I can be of service. And thank you again, Jane and Karen. It's always a pleasure to speak to your great delegates.
Thank you, Michael. It's lovely to
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. And there are a number of webinars that we have set up over the coming weeks, so we'll make sure that everyone gets a note of them. We're putting them out on social media and things. We will make sure that we connect Michael up with anyone who would like to speak to him separately, and we will come back to you, Michael. Certainly I will, to get a call in with you on just on a kind of personal note of how I deal with some of this stuff going forward. It's good to be prepared. So I will be in touch, and thank you again. It's lovely to see you. And yes, thank you for your time again.
Bye-bye.
Great, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Karen, thank you so much for having me. I think Jane popped off. I never know what's going to happen at the end, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. And again, it's lovely to see you. And we will see more of you, I hope, in the coming weeks and months, and stay safe.
Yeah, let's catch up after all this craziness. Please let me know if there's anybody else I can help out.
Absolutely, we will. You may regret that offer.
Take care. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Yeah.